What's up, guys? Welcome back to Let's Play Basara 3! We're moving on to the final character, and it's gonna be... well, it won't be Keiji here. I wanted to show off. We unlocked a few new characters, including Keiji and Motochika, for clearing some of the other characters we played as. We're gonna play as Sanada Yukimura! Alright, I'm gonna allow his opening cutscene to play out uninterrupted here.
Where the hell's Yukimura gone? Lord Shingen, my master. After all of the battles I've lost to you, I've learned so much. Now, it's about time I showed you.
Yukimura. The future of Takeda is in your hands. Honor the clan.
Lord Shingen!
All forces withdraw! Full withdrawal!
In the midst of a battle against Ieyasu Tokugawa, Shingen Takeda took ill, leaving his forces to face a most dire predicament. Shingen entrusted the command of his forces to Yukimura Sanada, his young apprentice who, without the guide of his master, found himself struggling to cope with the demands of leadership. Despite having the full support of those who elected him general, Yukimura's inexperience and apprehension caused Shingen's forces to fall victim to several crippling attacks from neighboring states. Ashamed of his incompetence, Yukimura labored to gain control, but his forces seemed only to weaken as his enemy, Ieyasu, grew stronger. The harsh reality of Yukimura's situation had begun to set in, and his dream of overthrowing Ieyasu seemed to become more and more distant.
Hey, General, listen to this. We've received a peace proposal from Ieyasu.
A peace proposal?
As promising as it sounds, it's more likely that he's just demanding our surrender.
Intolerable. My lord entrusted me with the safety of Takeda. That is his will, and it shall be done.
All right. So now what?
Well...
Just consider carefully, then choose your course. This is no light decision, General.
Alright, so let's go over Yukimura's setup really quick here. So, I'm going to go ahead and equip his secondary accessory and pick our ally. So for completing Masamune's story, we unlocked Kojiro as an ally, so I'm going to go ahead and pick him. He has a really nice ability called One for All, which, no, that's not a, not a My Hero Academia reference, and it is going to be kind of awkward to have Kojiro fighting alongside Yukimura, but at least I'll get some levels on him, which will be pretty nice. So we're going to go after Yoratsuna again. That'll be a nice, easy start to Yukimura's campaign, instead of going after the Maeda clan, which, as we discovered, can be a pretty techy, tricky map with a lot of unique strategies that need to be employed. We may go after them later. Okay, so time to recap the story. So, as you saw in the opening cutscene there, in the context of Basara 3's story, Ieyasu approaches Takeda Shingen in order to sort of settle their rivalry, because Ieyasu always looked up to Takeda Shingen as a mighty warrior and said, "One day I will surpass you," even though Takeda Shingen didn't really believe him because he was a tiny little twerp. So Ieyasu, having gotten swole and buff and now being a brilliant tactician, commanded his army, and Takeda Shingen managed to fall ill miraculously. So Takeda Shingen has fallen gravely ill. We don't know if he's confirmed dead in this continuity, but we do know that he is completely incapacitated from fighting. So Yukimura has become a general and been put completely in charge of the Takeda army. So he rushes into battle recklessly and has his ass handed to him by Ieyasu, because he was too rattled and too unprepared. So this is definitely the toughest battle that Yukimura has ever had to deal with, because he's not himself. He's totally rattled, and he's allowed the whole Takeda clan to basically fall to ruin, as we've seen with the other campaigns here. So we do have our faithful ninja counterpart Saratobi Sasuke fighting along our side. He's going to be our sort of general narrator when we transition, sort of like how Yoshitsugu was for Mitsunari, or how Kojiro was for Masamune. So, again, this first battle is going to be against Yoratsuna, who's not very interesting of a character, so I'm not going to talk about him too much. What I am going to talk about is Yukimura in terms of the anime adaptations. So Yukimura in the movie, as far as this Basara 3 timeline story goes, Takeda Shingen was about to settle. Well, let me back it up to Season 2 a little bit, towards the end. So Yukimura basically spent the entirety of Season 2 going to Satsuma to train with Shimatsu and try to ally a bunch of people against Hideyoshi under Takeda Shingen's orders, which he ended up being pivotal in defending Satsuma against Mori. And there's a lot of episodes with Yukimura just kind of reflecting on himself and his decisions and his desire to become a great leader. And as much as this series has a hard time taking itself seriously, and as much as Yukimura is one of the joke characters of the anime, they actually did a really remarkable job of making those episodes and Yukimura's arc, his story arc, seem believable and emotional. So there's a lot of episodes towards the end of Season 2 where he's just kind of, he's not really sulking, but he's just sort of thinking about his, making sure his path is the right one. And then he does have his one epic battle where he manages to defeat Mori and bring the Fugakuin back under the control of Motochika, who had suffered a tragic defeat against Hideyoshi when he decided to punch the sea and win. So, come into the last party, Yukimura didn't have a whole lot of obstacles in his way, so he has another opportunity to settle his long rivalry with Masamune, and that's really about it. He's also heavily inspired by Ieyasu. Instead of having this hatred and vitriol against him, he's heavily inspired by Ieyasu and Ieyasu's dedication to bring the country together under one banner, based on our bonds and our commonalities instead of what opposes us. And he's so fired up by this, he goes up to Takeda Shingen and says, we have to, ally with him, or we have to make sure we see this cause through in our own way, because this is a noble and just thing that he's trying to do. And Takeda Shingen is like, Yukimura, as he typically does, which caused a little squabble between them, a hilarious squabble between them, which actually resulted in Takeda Shingen dying? In the movie. So they basically took this whole plot about Takeda Shingen becoming incapacitated and played it up for laughs in the movie. But in spite of the fact that they played it up for laughs, as I mentioned earlier in the LP, it's actually a very emotional scene. In no short part of the music as well that plays in that scene. So the scene where where Yukimura actually defeats Takeda Shingen and is regrettably put in charge of the entire clan at that point is actually very emotionally effective, and I think they did a great job with it. So the way this is handled in Judge End, however, is more similar to the game, but we get to see Yukimura struggle quite a bit. We get to see him take on the identity of the Tiger of Kai, literally, and he tries to put on his outfit and impersonate him, and it's really goofy and over the top. It's like one of my favorite comedy portions of Judge End, is Yukimura taking the role of the Tiger of Kai very seriously and trying to go up against Kenshin and almost getting himself killed because obviously he wanted to do what Shingen does, which is go fight Kenshin. And it didn't really work out in his favor. Kenshin almost killed him because, again, Yukimura was rattled and unstable, whereas Kenshin was stable and steady, and he had a smooth, steady hand to strike with, essentially. So, other than that, Yukimura's storyline plays out pretty standard in Judge End. There's not too much else to say about it. But I will say that in terms of the context of, again, if you only followed the anime and you watched The Last Party, there doesn't seem to be much of any reason for Yukimura to want to ally with Mitsunari, and that's something that I have said throughout this whole LP, leading up until now, is that it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I guess they had to have one of the main two characters ally with one of the new main two characters for Basara 3 in the Sekigahara conflict, but it honestly doesn't make any sense. Well, it didn't make any sense in Judge End, especially when you see how else the story could be adapted in the context of The Last Party. It makes absolutely no sense. But then when you actually play the game and you see how they portray this, that opening scene really does tell it all right there as to why Yukimura would want to ally with Mitsunari, even though he realizes that Mitsunari is objectively a bad guy, and it's pretty hard to argue that one when he literally calls himself the Dark King. So the only reason why Yukimura would ally himself with Mitsunari is because he just hates Ieyasu that much. And he only hates him, he doesn't necessarily hate him as a person, but it's more so that, again, he always knew that Ieyasu would try to surpass Takeda Shingen, and in the moment that Ieyasu rises to power just happens to be the moment that Takeda Shingen is down and out. So essentially, you can imagine how much that hurts Yukimura's pride as such a character who's defined by his pride. You see him just completely down and out, and you see the pain on his face when he's staring up at the tall and broad-chested and bold Ieyasu up there on the plateau. He stares at him with envy and anger because he's like, basically Ieyasu has him beat, and Yukimura doesn't think that's right. She doesn't think he has any right to have him beat because Takeda Shingen didn't get a fair fight, and he also doesn't think that Ieyasu should have ever been able to surpass him. So Yukimura is very hurt, and so he's going to make some irrational decisions as he goes through this out of necessity because he just wants to do the right thing and lead the Takeda clan to victory. So that is my in-depth analysis of Yukimura's character in the context of the Basara 3 storyline. So now that I'm off of that tangent, we can finally talk about this stage that we're almost done with. So I figured I would spend most of this first video talking about that. So in the next video, we can talk about Yukimura's combat sandbox and how he is used gameplay-wise. And I'm a big fan of Yukimura's gameplay style. His Basara attack is also awesome. We'll set this tree guy on fire! But honestly, he does have some problems. I feel like Keiji, in being introduced in Basara 2, is a big improvement on Yukimura's formula. And I guess I'll talk about that more in the next video. But the way that his combos sort of gain momentum and flow worked out a lot better with Keiji than with Yukimura. So Yukimura leaves himself open to a lot of hits, especially in Basara 1. But he does play a lot better in this game than he did in the past.
Should my legs ever fail me on my journeys, I would beg of you, my lord, Show me no mercy.